Now welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Thor's Lightning Takes. And let's once again get right to the news.
Sounding pretty repetitive there today.
It is getting a little, maybe I'll have to shake it up. I feel like I'm a broken record at this
speech.
point. I know, I even have the cadence. I try to vary the cadence up.
You don't.
I try to.
Alright, so we're going to talk about, surprise, surprise, Andor again. Tony Gilroy explains how Andor went from 5 seasons to 2. In a new feature by Variety, Tony Gilroy explained how he worked with Lucasfilm to get Andor off the ground. Apparently on the heels of the financial and overwhelming success of Rogue One, Kennedy was kind of eager to work with Gilroy again on Star Wars. Gilroy says, "I remember Kathy saying, 'What can we do?' And I said, 'Well, what kind of stories do you want to do?' And she goes, 'We could do anything.' So I said, 'Could you do, Inherit the Wind?'" Right, Inherit the Wind is a 1960s film by Stanley Kramer that adopted the 1955 play of the same name. It was kind of like a legal drama. It was, highly critical of creationism and commented on intellectual disclosure. So Gilroy is showing right off the bat he was interested in telling human stories more so than maybe sci-fi stories.
Well,
or fairy tale
stories. They do
stories.
mix well. It's not like sci-fi is just sci-fi. Usually good sci-fi has a human element to it, right?
Well, those conversations were long forgotten by 2018 when Lucasfilm started developing the live-action Disney Plus series featuring Cassian Andor and K2SO without Tony Gilroy. He was not approached to work on it. Kennedy sent him a script at one point, and Gilroy described the initial approach kind of like a Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in Star Wars.
Okay.
And replied to them on why the script wasn't working and what they should do.
Sounds like Gilroy needs to get a look at more scripts. That's all I'm saying.
So the series was reworked from the ground up. It was originally going to run for 5 seasons, each one covering 1 year of Cassian's life, leading to his introduction in Rogue One. However, after being in production for season 1 for 2 years, Gilroy realized he could not possibly do this 4 times.
I think he could. He's just...
No. He said, you just couldn't possibly physically make 5 years of the show. I mean, Diego would be 65. I'd be in a nursing home. We were panicked. We can't sign on to this forever.
Okay. Fair enough.
His solution instead was making 4 more seasons was to crunch the outline for each season into a 3-episode arc and make another 12 episodes that was essentially season 2. He borrowed the idea from the model he was using for season 1 where each block of 3 episodes is a singular story. And that's going to work. He explained it to the playlist as follows. It was about last spring. We were in Scotland and we were like, oh my god. How do we get out of here? How are we going to get out? What's our exit strategy? But then we realized, oh my god, we have 4 years, and we have 4 blocks, and I went home, and I came back with, you know what? Why don't we jump a year? And what's really cool, when we come back for part 2, we're going to jump a year, and we're going to come back, it's going to be a year later, all the shit's happened, and we're going to come back for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then we're going to jump a year. Then we're going to do 5, 6, 7 days and then jump a year. Then we're going to do 2 weeks and then jump a year. And the final block we come back to is going to be going into the last 5 days before Rogue One.
Okay.
The result is a set of 1,500 pages that cover both seasons of the show, with the final scene of season 2 leading us directly into Cassian's introduction in Rogue One. This is literally the case. Gilroy says, "Yeah, I mean, our final scene of the show is no secret. It's going to be Cassian walking across the tarmac to get in a ship to go to the Rings of Catherine to go meet Daniel May's Tivik informant character that Cassian kills in Rogue One because he's become a liability. He's going there."
Spoiler alert.
Hey, it's not my fault.
Well, I mean, we talked about that. Yes, I was wondering if that's literally where the show will end with, where the movie begins like that.
I do like that Gilroy seems to, know his own limitations. He knows he's not going to want to be doing this project for the next, 10 years to do 5 seasons.
Well, there are some very interesting takeaways in what he said here. I could probably ramp about this for a while in many different directions, but it's interesting that how Kennedy kind of can you do more for us? And that's kind of what I've always said is the issue with Kennedy is I don't, and look, I've expressed my opinions on her many places, but
yes,
to try to be as unbiased here as possible, I really feel like whoever is running Lucasfilm, like if you're the one calling all the shots, you should probably have a pretty good grasp of Star Wars, right? You should probably know what stories are going to work, which ones aren't. And I'm not saying you have to be the one who sits down and writes them and figures everything out.
right.
But to me, this is the approach that she seems to have with everything. She goes out and hires, like Benioff and Weiss from Game of Thrones. We keep hearing these announcements that she's going out and finding these people, but it doesn't seem like she has an idea herself, which is not the worst thing in the world. If she's president of Lucasfilm, if she has someone who's, a right-hand man or woman who gets the franchise and gets what stories will work, like a Filoni perhaps. And that's always been my biggest problem with Kennedy. It seems like she just has no idea what will work in Star Wars. She is just completely relying on finding people who hopefully will come in and do the right thing. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Like I was saying, though, I do admire him for knowing his own limitations. Think about it with Game of Thrones, Benioff and Weiss. They didn't want to do that last season. I feel like they were burned out, so they just slopped something on the table and said, "Here you go."
Well, HBO and even I think George R.R. Martin wanted 5 more seasons or something like that. I mean, they just wanted it to go on indefinitely, or as long as it needed to go. And the problem with something like Game of Thrones is that it can go on indefinitely. The whole point of that is almost to not have an end point, right? To have something that just feels like a slice of another world and put on screen, not necessarily even structured in your normal story format, if you will, where you can kind of find a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's hard to end a series like that, is what I'm saying in a very roundabout way, much less just let's take one season, 6 episodes, and wrap it all up. But that's a whole other story.
Well, like I was trying to say, so he's realized he doesn't want to drag it out like this. Like, he is not going to want to be doing this in years to come, way down the road when he's like, oh, I'm in season 4 now, season 5. It's like he's realized that and he doesn't want to get lazy with it, so he's like, well, let's condense this, so he doesn't really have to sacrifice his creativity to do this long-running thing that he knows he's not going to want to do in a few years.
While I'm fine with that and respect that and understand it, then find someone who does.
I don't know if we needed 5 seasons.
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying we necessarily need 5. We don't know. We haven't seen season 1. I mean, if season 1 blows us away, we're like, okay, well, let's just, instead of 1 season condensed, that would be really cool to get 4 seasons, right? If it's really, really good. If it's not, well, then we might not even want a second season. But my point is, there are people out there who will devote every waking moment of their life to Star Wars and making it as good as possible. They very much exist. And this is not a knock against Tony Gilroy. I get it. He wants to do other things, sure. But find the people. I mean, Kennedy even talked about it. They need to find people who are willing to commit long term. It's part of the problem with the sequels, right? JJ came in and did 1 movie. He didn't want to do another. So we end up with the hodgepodge that is the sequels.
We also know that Tony Gilroy is not directing in season 2. He might still be the showrunner and the writer, but he's not directing. He says, season 2, I'm not directing. I am not. I mean, COVID kind of saved the show because I was so ignorant and naive about how difficult, how huge, and what it was going to be. I mean, I had no clue. And if I had directed, I mean, it would have been, I don't know what's happened with the show. The job I have to do now is so all-consuming and so much more than that. It's just not a good use of my time to be on set. And the directors that we get, they come, they're energized, they're ambitious, and so I can take it all the way down and do the whole thing, but they really come in with a new hunger that you really need. And they come in with a little extra thing. And it's very exciting to wake up because my days are out of New York. It'll be 5 o'clock in the morning, wake up, turn on dailies, and go, wow, I wouldn't have shot it that way. That's, wow, look what they did, right? So no, I'm not directing. No, I can't. I want to come back and direct something else later on, but I can't do it now. The job's too big. I can't afford it, the time.
Well, we know Gilroy isn't a Star Wars fan. He's even said that before. He doesn't consider himself much of a fan, so trying to keep yourself excited for something maybe you're not a fan of, though keeping yourself excited for anything is never going to be easy. But I mean, there are people in this world who do one job for their entire lives, and that's just how it is. So it's always weird to hear people complain, oh, I couldn't dare work on Star Wars for more than 2 or 3 years in a row. I have other things to do. I don't really pity you too much, to be honest with you. But, you look at Favreau, you look at Filoni, they've been doing it now for years. They've been doing multiple shows. They have multiple shows planned, whether or not they're writing, directing, or, they're not doing everything, mind you, but they are all in. And I think those are the people you need to find. You need to find the people who are willing to commit years and years.
I just think it's a lot to ask of one person
Sure.
to do all the writing, all the show running, and all the directing.
Yes, I agree entirely. But what I'm saying is, if you can find people that'll be honored and more than happy to do it and would do it extremely well, because that's what they want to do. Tony Gilroy seems like he wants to write and direct, many different projects, which that's absolutely fine. I have no issue with that. And I'm not saying you can't ever bring in a guy who wants to do, or a woman who wants to do one season or one episode, bring in fresh faces, keep it that way. But what I am saying is, and it goes back to Kennedy, you need to find people in this franchise that know the franchise, that know Star Wars, and want to do this. This is their end game. It's not like, well, I'm using Star Wars as a stepping stone, or I'm going to stop here for a little while and do a season of this or an episode and then move on. No, you need to find people where Star Wars is their end game. And I feel like most of the people they bring in, again, beyond Favreau and Filoni and maybe a few others, this is not their end game. This is just another step. Whereas Star Wars should be the epitome. It should be the highlight that you can, or the pinnacle you can achieve in your career, because it is the most premier franchise.
All right, well, season 2 begins filming in November. So far, we do know Diego Luna and Stellan Skarsgård are returning, and we assume Genevieve O'Reilly is as well. Though we have no confirmation about the rest of the cast, which works in the show's benefit, because with new characters, their fate should be unknown. Though Gilroy did confirm to the playlist that the team of writers that worked in the first season is all returning.
Any confirmation on Alan Tudyk for K2SO? I mean, it would
be
almost
told,
impossible
yes,
to get him in there.
Well, he said it. Tony Gilroy said in a different article that we covered that we were going to see how those two actually met up.
Okay,
yeah, so we know he's going to be in
okay.
there.
I'm just making sure, because I love Alan Tudyk. I loved K2SO, so it would be a shame not to get them into this series. They'll bring some nice levity, I'm sure, too, because this sounds like it's going to be pretty heavy most of the time.
All right, let's kind of get through our second little piece here today. There was a brand new clip for Andor where Cassian meets Luthen Rael, and it was interesting. It's about a minute long. It covers a lot of the quotes we hear from the trailer. We do know it's like one of the first, if not the first, meeting between the two characters. And I find it very interesting. I mean, it looks like Luthen hired Cassian to steal something from the Empire, something that would be hard to get a hold of. And it sounds like Cassian
just literally walks in
and takes it.
Yeah.
And he really shows his distaste for the Empire.
Yes.
Talk about how spit in their food. They can't imagine someone like me walking here. They're so fat and proud. And so I think that's a really interesting thing, because it's showing such distaste. Like, I'm wondering if this is where I'm wondering if this is where he will get recruited.
It sounds like this is, you're seeing the breadcrumbs even, because the rebellion isn't really a thing at this time. There are different cells, there are different, they really don't come together until Rogue One. So it sounds like this is the beginning, because we kind of see this Luthen guy, is that his name?
Luthen Rael.
We kind of see him in the trailer. It looks like he's on Coruscant, so it's almost like
he was an influential, wealthy
politician
dude.
Or businessman or something, yeah. And so now it looks like he's getting, maybe he's getting tired of things, and he's starting his own little...
Yeah.
It's just a guess, but that's kind of the impression I get.
It's also interesting to see how Cassian's life has been going a little bit. It sounds like he works with some other person named Bix, who we know is a character in the show, running some sort of racket where they pay people to leave expensive stuff on the ships when it gets sent to the salvage yard here on Ferrix, and then they go in and take it.
Very nice, yeah.
Resell it. Nice little operation.
Nice, yeah.
But he's branching out. Probably needs the money. I don't know. I can't wait to see how this scene gets, is in the series.
No, it got me. I mean, it was a minute long, but I'm like, yeah, this so far, it seems to take, and I know it's a minute scene. You can't really extrapolate what the entire series is going to be, but it seems to take Star Wars more seriously than a lot of things do in a way, I guess you could say. Does that make any sense to you? Where it's like, I get a very serious tone to this scene. What
I find interesting is we did get a picture released a while ago of Cassian getting shot at or something. It's in that same location. I probably have it up on the screen for everybody, but it is in the exact same location, so I'm wondering if this deal is going to go awry.
Goes a little south.
Or else this is just a normal meetup spot for him and the shooting up scene happens later. Who knows? But it does look like the same place to me.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Andor, as I keep saying. Fingers crossed. I hope this is the series that brings Star Wars, forward a little more evolution, a little more grim and real and gritty than it's kind of been lately. I don't know.
Well, you can tell that practical location looks good.
Oh yeah, the practical effects, on location, all of that looks fantastic. So, all right. Well, that's all we got for you this time. So take to the comments below and tell me what you think of today's news, or what I had to ramble about in regards to today's news. And let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.